Okay. Thank you, Kathy, for hitting the record button. I'm getting my pen ready. I think that's even my first slide to say record. Okay. So this module, we're going to understand the benefits of a safe system assessment. So I'll talk you through some of the evaluations that have happened and whether these are useful in providing us value. Last thing we want to do is add more red tape to already challenging red tape projects and the like if they're not giving us benefit. So we'll talk through that. The process for a safe system assessment within an infrastructure project was starting to be fairly consistent across all jurisdictions in Australia and over in New Zealand in how people are integrating safe system assessments into projects. And the difference between a safe system assessment and a road safety audit, I'll talk a little bit on that. Don't forget to count the last of your Wallies before Wally goes and hibernates. All right, so I'm going to start off with this chart and I'm going to spend a bit of time on it. But what it comes from is an independent evaluation of 35 safe system assessments. So it was undertaken by Claire Turner and basically took 35 safe system assessments and analysed designs that were assessed, the original designs, the safe system assessment, the recommendation, put it through a crash prediction model and then came out with an understanding over a 20-year period what would be the impact of different scenarios. And the first thing I need to say is that these 35 projects, infrastructure upgrade projects, they're big. They're really big projects, big duplication jobs, many hundreds of millions of dollars, long lengths, duplication, new intersections, and the like. Big bypasses of towns, sort of 20 kilometers worth of bypass, those sorts of projects. These weren't small ones. And what they did is they said, okay, let's have a look at these. Let's have a look at the area and try and understand what would happen if this upgrade was not built. Okay. What would be the death and serious injury predicted over a 20-year period through the area that people need to travel currently? So like take the town bypass, for example. It would be that they, all the traffic still continues to go through the town, or the duplication, they continue to go through the unduplicated road. Now they had to make some factoring in growth and a few other things, but they generally, they came to this sort of output, which was fatal serious injury crashes, FSI, so fatals and serious injuries. They said across all of these projects, all of these areas, over a 20-year period, they expected 344 fatalities and 7,908 serious injuries if nothing was done. Okay, so then they looked at what were the designs that were produced. Okay, these are the essentially reference designs. If you understand that term, it's sort of the design that will go out to consultants for developing into more and more detail, getting into a detailed design eventually in the construction. But it's giving you your alignment, your intersection form, generally some cross sections and those sort of things, but not into the nitty gritty detail. But these reference design style level designs were produced by the big multinational design houses, and what we saw, or what they saw, or they used their prediction model to see, was that improved road safety, and it brought crashes down to 6,700 serious injuries, 286 fatalities. Now, bear in mind, these projects weren't road safety driven projects often. I mean, there was a safety element to them, but they were often freight efficiency projects, congestion easing projects, public transport projects, and these sorts of things. But Okay, so that's that. Then what they did was said, okay, a safe system assessment was done on this reference design. And if the project team or the designers and the like were to take the highest recommendations out of the safe system assessment and incorporate those, what would it have eventuated in? And it took down serious injuries to 3,890 and 167 fatalities. But they were able to understand what was actually adopted by the project team. So they got that report, they got these recommendations, and then they actually were able to accept some of these, and they couldn't do some of the others for a variety of reasons, these recommendations. And so ended up with 5,298 serious injuries and 227 fatalities. Now, to me, this tells quite a story, this graph. So the first thing it tells me is that, okay, we get these designs for these big major upgrade projects and the like, and they improve road safety. So to try to sort of say, oh, you know, these designs are, you know, not improving safety and the like, it's not true. I mean, we're getting improvement. There were elements of it that made things worse, but there were still some really significant gains, and it sort of ended up at that. This difference here shows me what, you know, we can do with our existing knowledge in terms of infrastructure design. So there's a big amount we can do. The difference between that and that difference there, I think, is very complex as to why that is the case. I think it covers off everything from general acceptance of innovation, perceived community acceptance of different things, perceived political acceptance, just people's general, that's not how we do things. The sometimes funding available to do that was an issue. Surprisingly, not as much as you might expect, but yeah, funding could come into play. Yeah, so there's sort of some of the reasons why it goes back to that. So that's quite interesting there. But the difference between that and that difference, that's the immediate benefit of just going through the safe system assessment process. Because all of these original, no, I take that back, not all of them. I think it was 32 of the 35 or something like that. It was very close to all, had been the subject of a feasibility stage road safety audit. Okay, so it had that independent set of designs, and it had a little feedback loop, and it had been improved. So this then goes to showing, just by the process, that you now understand that process and you've been through it, has the ability to get us that sort of gain by the alterations in the project, you know, adding new things, altering things. So that's pretty exciting. That's really exciting. The other thing that I suppose is of quite a bit of interest to me is this. We established pretty much straight off the bat in this course that the safe system, you know, is underpinning Vision Zero philosophy, trying to, you know, target 0 deaths and serious injury on the road network going forward. We talk a lot about, you know, about that. That's our aspiration. And so we're doing these safe system assessments, and even our highest safe system alignment is still got this residual of death and serious injury if they implemented everything we're saying. And so when I first, saw this independent report, I was like, what? This is, and then so you dig into the detail, and to a degree, it showed me that the evaluation was pretty realistic, because what it showed was that us as safe system assessors and what we're spitting out as answers, ideas, upgrade, and changes to the design of things are good. They're really, they're great, but they're not going to eliminate death and serious injury for all road users in all scenarios. And especially when you look at what is this residual, what are these death and serious injuries that are still happening? What we see in there are motorcyclists are quite highly represented. And this is even with a lot of the projects get, the best we know about for motorcycle safety, things like underrun protection on the barriers proposed, good intersection forms like roundabouts that help significantly for motorcycle safety, and these sorts of things. But the residual of the fact that we still know that all of those are really only taking a small reduction in death and serious injury for motorcyclists out there because of their inherent vulnerability and the speeds they're traveling. We just can't cater for it with our existing knowledge and infrastructure and designs. So, so motorcyclists being one there. You remember I talked about that extreme driver behavior, and I said the bulk of death and serious injury out there are people just going about their business and the like. But we have this rogue element that is well outside the bounds. So these fit in there. I mean, the recommendations in safe system assessments aren't seeming at the moment to alleviate some of those 180 kilometer per hour, crashes, the super highly intoxicated, drug affected, drivers and these sorts of things. Okay. But the safe system assessments that were done also included these wider elements of enforcement and behavioral change initiatives and the like. But again, the evaluation was somewhat realistic to say, okay, well, that's contributing to a wide scheme. And okay, so if there's a bit more enforcement in that area, it's still not going to, eliminate that. And we need wholesale policy change, legislative change, major system change across a national level, across state levels, and local. And we're talking here about the local individual thing. I mean, it's not like your safe system assessment is going to talk about, vehicle design rules, Australian design rules for vehicles, must mandate lane departure and this and that. That it's sort of so far beyond the scope of what you would do in a safe system assessment. So what we're really, saying, I feel in this category here is that our infrastructure and what we can do at a local level in terms of, some enforcement at a local level and some maybe sessions in the school to talk about how to use the new crossings or cross the new road, or, these sorts of things are contributing to a much wider system, and the residual, and it shows we play a role in this, but just this alone ain't going to get us to zero. We're going to need some significant political, community, social change, major policy alterations. And there is good work, happening in that space. It's a long haul, but yeah, I want us to be realistic on what we can achieve. But I think, this one, amazing, and we should be doing it. And we'll work on this through, lobbying for more funding, through sessions like this with designers, or and altering design, the Australia's Guide to Road Design to integrate more safe system thinking. We're seeing great leaps and bounds in that at the moment with, continuous barrier systems on high volume roads being the now the new norm over a clear zone, and great design documentation around road safety platforms and things like that. So we'll keep improving that. As we sort of improve that, we're actually also going to see this one come down. So we'll hope to start to see that, new designs come in with all these safety features and safe system assessment. So this is a hidden value, and it was actually the same for road safety auditing. Look back on it. The safe system assessments and road safety audits have done this, are an education tool as well. So the fact that somebody, a group of people who understand safe system principles, assesses a project, reports back to a designer or a project manager or the like, they look at it, and what happens is then that the next time they do a design, they've got that in the back of their mind. Oh yeah, okay, I had that safe system assessment done, and they talked about continuous barriers. And I looked into that, and okay, so we're gonna, we do that. So we'll see the next design come out of that design house, maybe with that, if it's appropriate, or at least they're putting that forward as options. And so we see continual improvement, feedback loops, education, and it's just wins all round. So it's amazing sort of the story that those 4 bars tell me, but I'll see if anybody's got any insights themselves on it.
Yeah, Ken, questions come through about the third one along. Is the 167 fatalities totally attributed to unsafe road activities and motorbikes here?
No, not quite. That made a significant chunk of it. There was just still, I suppose, some of the features that we were suggesting just weren't totally eliminating death and serious injury for the crash types. They were doing reasonably well, but we saw sort of residuals. I suppose some examples, lots of minor, very low volume accesses onto some of these roads, accesses across roads where your exposure is very low and your likelihood is sort of high and severity is high, but the exposure being so low brings the scoring sort of down quite a bit. But if you spread those across the network, we're going to eventually see some. So there was a bit of residual there, but you've got small amounts coming out of that. I don't know where you draw that line on inappropriate, highly inappropriate road activities is a blurred one. There is this 300-page Austroads report by the Centre for Automotive Safety Research talking about error in the road system and how you define that. So it gets very blurred and grey. I mean, I use that extreme example of 180 kilometres an hour or the like down the wrong way of the freeway. But, you go, okay, well, 180 kilometres per hour on the right carriageway, is that, within what we deem as highly, probably, okay, 150, okay, 130, now we're in the range of, okay, well, that's, inappropriate use of the system, but is that sort of generally within the realms of what we should be trying to cater for? Because we know some people will, do that, maybe to overtake and these sort of things. So it gets messy. So there's, it's a bit complicated. I'm happy to dig out and try and share the evaluation report with people if they want to delve into some of these specifics.
Thanks, Ken. And just to clarify, was this based on real crash data or predicted? You've got predicted.
Yeah. It's a really good question. It is predicted. So they utilised a adapted prediction model, which was essentially the OSRAP model, the Australian Road Assessment Program, with crashes into like crash history integrated into it to try to utilize that as well as the predictive elements in OSRAP, which aren't crash based. They included then a growth factor on traffic, but also pedestrians and cyclists and motorcyclists, with utilizing the local government area growth rates ABS published growth rates. So, take your, I don't know, Wyndham or Hume or something. So they were higher, faster, growing than some of the other ones. So, factored that into it. If the project had a traffic model and actually most of them did, they utilized that for the actual vehicle increase in traffic, but it was more the growth rate in the municipalities were around the bikes, pedestrians, to get that, which wasn't often modeled. If you're doing a big new town bypass, you get amazing modeling predictions of scenarios for the 5-year, 20-year, 50-year growth of traffic, but you rarely get that for pedestrians and cyclists, so they use that. But to answer that, the prediction model, it was all forecasting rather than waiting that time and looking back at what had actually happened. But now in about probably 14 years time, we'll be able to do that look back and see whether these were correct or not. Any other questions come in there?
That's all for now. Thank you.
We're just looking at the chat there. Apparently people are discussing Nokia 3310s.
No, that was some time ago, Ken. That's all.
Oh, sorry.
I've been paying attention to covering.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope that sort of gives you a bit of an insight into, I suppose, some of the immediate value we can get. Also setting expectations on, that the practice of doing the safe system assessment isn't going to eliminate death and serious injury. It's going to play a decent contributing role, but we need major, wide, holistic interventions across all sorts of areas, and we'll continue to work on that. Others are working heavily in that space, and you may be involved in that. I took these dot points out of the Victorian Safe System Assessment Guidelines. I thought they were quite nice. I don't like slides with this many words, but I'll just quickly go through them. It lists some benefits of a safe system assessment, a way of determining how well a project aligns with safe system principles. I think you've already seen that. Method to compare project design options from a safe system assessment perspective. And that's something that you've only got one design option to look at, but you could imagine if they had different design options at that intersection you're doing yours on, how you could score those and then get that comparative scoring, and you saw that in the example. Information on design changes that will move a project proposal closer to safe system objectives of eliminating the risk of fatalities and serious injuries. Method to assist planners, designers and managers to move the safe system approach from theory to practice. And I think that's a really good one. It's too airy-fairy when you talk about principles of safe system. Aspiration of no death and serious injury, humans make mistakes, shared responsibility, human tolerance to physical force. They're great principles that everybody generally gets on board. Executive directors, chief executives, ministers, they all sign up to it, but our decisions on a project on the ground, it's hard to sometimes translate those to practice. And this is that sort of conduit to do that. It's one of the ways we can really help do that. And it's a sound basis for future planning, design, and road infrastructure. There's a couple of other benefits, and I just actually, I sat down last night and wrote a top 10 list of reasons why safe system assessments seem to be getting traction. And they included these, but I also expanded it to some others that I thought were really important. So we might be able to share that somehow, Kathy. I don't know if the reason I think it's important that you understand some of the benefits of it is because you're going to be shortly as some of Australia's most qualified safe system assessors. It's a fairly new process. There's probably only a few hundred safe system assessors out there around Australia, and probably another 100 in New Zealand. And there's quite a few safe system assessments happening by those people, but it's still, on that rise. It's certainly rising very much as an integral part of infrastructure works. But you'll be in there, and you will no doubt be getting asked questions that I've been getting asked for many years now. Like, why would we do this? We do road safety audits, so why do we need this? It's just this is just more red tape in a already slow project. No, we got the best designers in the world to do this. We don't need this. Look, no, we followed the Austroads guide. Just the usual sort of reasons people don't want to go through a process like this. So you being armed with some of the understanding of the benefits of a safe system assessment, I think, is helpful for the overall industry practice of doing this. It'll help you in terms of getting you more safe system assessments to do, and the more you do, the better that is, because the more we're getting that out there and we're getting that independent injection of safe system principles into projects along the as they go. So I think this is important. So we'll somehow send that out to people to have a read of. It's a bit of a long article. I apologize. I really, got into it. But it does go through some of the benefits. One of the key ones that's not listed here, and I think is super important, is the fact that a safe system assessment quantifies benefit. The benefit of a proposal, a design, a project. Okay. So take, for example, a raised intersection, which we talked a fair bit about in module 3. Okay. If you design a raised intersection and you hand that design to a road safety auditor, all the road safety auditor's job is to tell you all the risks associated with that. That is literally their scope. Tell me the risks. They will not present to you the benefits. They will not justify any benefits. They will not quantify any benefits. They're just going to say to you things like truck rollover, rear end crashes, run off road as a result here, all those risks and fears people have. Okay, that's fine. Okay, because we need to, ensure that we are thinking those through in the design. We maybe get some truck rollover modeling to check if that's genuinely an issue. We look at other projects, have rear ends gone up, and we look at these different aspects of it. But if you just did a road safety audit, you would think, oh my gosh, this is a very risky thing to do. If you get a safe system assessment done early on, what you will see is this whopping reduction in risk. And you will see that in that little bit that, remains, there's a few things. There's some of that inappropriate, crazy behavior probably, but also then there's, is there truck rollover possibility or not? But what we present, it's in your face, is this is going to reduce death and serious injury by a massive amount, or reduce risk by a massive amount. It's going to get us great safe system alignment. And there's some small things that need to be tweaked and worked through, and the audits and the details of the design and things will work through that. So that's really powerful. And it's super powerful if we actually want change to happen. We want innovation. We want to see things where we have just like traffic signals and high speed roads where we just go build the same thing, death and serious injury. But the idea of a raised intersection on that, oh my God, we couldn't possibly do that because of these other little risk concerns that people have, which the way we've been in this process of doing audits present as all the fact that this is a super risky thing to do, but it's actually a super safe thing to do, and a few little risks and specifics to it. So I hope that makes sense to you. But yeah, really important.
the things you do to relax on a Thursday night, Ken, are different to, I think, what most people do. But I have shared that on Moodle. There's a question that's come through. Once qualified, is there a period of on-the-job accompaniment we have to do with another accreditor assessor like the RSA system?
So I will cover this off shortly around what the different sort of accreditation schemes around the country are, and the like. They are nowhere near as advanced as road safety auditing is from that sense. A lot of jurisdictions, pretty much, you successfully complete this course, and that's you're it. You're out there doing it. Off you go. But I'll show you a few other what a few other jurisdictions are doing shortly. So good question there. Okay. Now we are going to have a break at some point, aren't we? How long have I drifted off down my tangents on? Okay, no, we're doing all right for time. Let's talk about the process guidance and then that registration accreditation of what has started already. I think I alluded to this quite a bit there, but the early stage safe system assessment is good within a project. So if you take the grey there as a sort of maybe project life cycle, a concept's developed and then drafts and details are put to it, and then it's constructed and then it's open to traffic. Really, I mean, I think the safe system assessment serves the purpose beautifully at those early stages. Once you've got some meat on the bone of your design and you're moving into that stuff, I don't particularly find safe system assessments are the right tool. I mean, you can use them, but I'll tell you about, there's a team I was in were doing a safe system assessment, and it was basically about to be issued for construction. And the project team said, well, we want this to align with safe system principles, so we should do a safe system assessment. So we're talking detailed design done, basically. And like a $300 million duplication job, so fairly hefty. And we said, I think you probably just want a road safety audit done at this stage. And they're like, no, we're about safe system here in X jurisdictions, major projects area. Okay, all right. They insisted. And so we do this safe system assessment, and we show them that they can do a lot better alignment with safe system principles with intersection form changes, changes to their cross section, addition of continuous barriers in sections, separated bike path facilities. I mean, so all that resulted down here was that they are just like, we can't do any of that. Like, the project's set. We thought you were gonna, give us information of things that we could change. Oh, like, well, that, so that they were thinking it was going to be like, oh, flare rates of the barrier, or overlap of the barrier, or the barrier end terminal type, or this little bit of line marking here could be slightly over here, But that's not what really it's about. I mean, road safety audits are set up beautifully to do that. So anyway, that just ended up in, not only did they say, we don't want your report, we want you just never give us that again or show that to anybody. They just hated it. So that's just the example of where it just doesn't seem to work, because you can't fundamentally change a project when it's that far down the line. But at these stages, that's when it's considered. That's when they're making those choices, and that's when it's really good and important. And then when that's all set, and you're going to get into that minute detail, road safety audits. Now, this is interesting. did a little bit of a comparison early on, and Kathy will laugh because on the weekend, so not on the Thursday night, on the weekend, I did an updated table of this, of the difference between safe system assessments, road safety audits, and OSRAP, which I mentioned earlier, the Australian Risk Assessment Program, or based on IRAP, just because I thought there was more to this than that. And people often ask that question of like, well, what's the difference between a road safety audit and a safe system assessment? And then, OSRAP. What's the difference between OSRAP and safe system assessments and audit? And I completely sympathise with people on this, because it's getting bloody complicated with the amount of assessment methodologies and tools available. They just keep coming and coming, and that's all good because people are trying to look for ways, how do we integrate this and the like. But I think we need a bit of clarity around what are the differences and where would you use them and what are the purposes and those sorts of things. So did that sheet as well. I haven't actually put that anywhere yet, Kathy, so maybe we could send out an advanced copy of that to this group as well. I'll send that to you after the session and we can load it somewhere. This one, I suppose, is a watered down version of some of the stuff that I've put in that bigger picture one. Maybe in the break I'll bring that up just to show people. But these one's just audits and safe system assessments. I mean, they both look at the likelihood of crashes really well. Severity of crashes, I sort of put sometimes there. Those who are, have had a look at the new Guide to Road Safety Part 6, 2022, more and more pushing and forcing into the severity of crashes. So if people are following that, really getting into it, it's better. I still worry, and I see a lot of road safety audits, one of the different reviews of audits, or see them for one reason or another. I'm like, we're still really heavily focused on that likelihood and just ignoring some inherent severity issues in some audits. But exposure really isn't factored in as a discrete element in a road safety audit. It's factored in, but it's back here mixed in with likelihood. Recommendations, both do that. That's nice, and both consider all road users, which is good. The fatal and serious injury focus only is safe system assessment, where audits will look at other injury crashes, minor property damage potential, and those sort of things, which, that can be really advantageous from a project perspective. So, it's not like that cross is a bad thing as such. It's just noting that that's not what this is about. Whereas the one here, we see the tick, is the other injury, minor, bingo, side swipes, and all those sort of things get more, more flagging in a road safety audit and more attention. Vehicles, people, maintenance, post-crash care, all better aligned with the safe system assessment. You get a bit of that sometimes, like some auditors are really good. I see it, thinking through, how are people going to behave? Are there things outside the box here? Okay, that's a pub. Are they going to be coming out of there intoxicated? What time's that happening? Where are they going to cross? Where are they going to? The car park's over there, and there's this. And are they going to be getting in the cars and driving? And so some auditors can be really good at that, but it's not that like forced integrated part of the assessment methodology. Recommendations to redesign the project. Safe system assessments are better at that and encourages innovative design. And I talked about that as one of the big advantages of a safe system assessment, where I actually think that road safety audits inhibit innovation. Now, I'm not saying that completely in a negative way, but what I think that we need to do is be clear on our innovation, the reason why we're innovating, and not just innovating because, somebody said, be innovative. And so you go and try to create solutions where we don't have the particular problem. So it's about, identifying issues that we have not been able to resolve, coming up with new ways to do those based on some sound principles and the like. And then I think, though, that if we do audits there, we inhibit that innovation because of the nature of the assessment protocol. If we do a safe system assessment, we validate the innovation if it's appropriate, and then you audit to to manage any residual risk associated with it. Yeah. Now, the process of a safe system assessment is very similar to the process of a road safety audit in the sense of how it works with a road controlling authority, a designer, and the like. And that was intentional. It was like, okay, we've got this new methodology. How do we integrate it in? It's like, why create a whole new way that this might work? Why not just say, okay, road safety audits work that way. Industry is generally happy with how that happens. Let's replicate that. And so it starts with that, a choice of, do you do a assessment or audit? And then there's a bit of a choice on what depth and level of assessment do you do? And I'll talk to you about those differences shortly. But the choice has been made. Let's do it, and let's do this level of it. The assessment team is selected. So usually the road controlling authority or the designer selects, a team. It could be a consultancy. It could be somebody from another area within the business or whatever it is. Then there's some sort of exchange of information with the client, the designer, the assessment team. Often, a meeting. What's the project about? Why are you doing this? What's here? What's going on there? Lots of that gathering of context, looking at growth models, the design, different bits and pieces. Getting out on site, having a look there with the team. How does it interact with the existing road environment? How does it tie in? How are people using this area? The matrix which you're using at the moment. Other safe system elements, as we talked about, those qualitative questions about people, vehicles, post-crash care. Treatments to improve safe system alignment. So recommendations, essentially, we often call them, things for the project team to consider, considerations. It's all written up in a fairly consistent manner, and you're starting to use one of the templates already. So we're fairly consistent with that. Then it's all handed over, and the designer, the project manager, the client responds to those changes or suggestions, and amends the design and the project to incorporate what they've agreed they can actually do. And then we have those, those are then taken forward. So sometimes at about this stage, there's this little feedback into doing one more scoring of the final design, so that you can almost create a nice little graph that goes initial design. You remember lower scores are better here. Initial design, existing conditions. We'll do first. Existing conditions, initial design. After safe system assessment. Initial SSA. And why would that be useful? Well, that's a pretty powerful thing to show your director, your executive director, your regional review committee, whatever it is. You've done everything you can as a project team to get the best alignment with safe system principles you possibly can, because you've had that independent check, you've integrated things in, and you've got it all the way down to there. So I think that's a neat way to do things often. Okay, so pop your questions in if you have any about the process, and I'll just show you a little bit about that accreditation registration, what some of the jurisdictions are doing. So as I mentioned, it's a bit varied across Australia and New Zealand, what's going on. I'll talk Victoria first, and then South Australia, and then I'll go to some other jurisdictions. But Victoria has got a safe system engineering page on the VicRoads website, which will probably be the Department of Transport website at some point, but still VicRoads. And then they've got this safe system assessment section. It's got some, it's got the guidelines, it's got the templates that you're using. So, and clearly says in there, please rebrand the templates, use them yourself, off you go. But it's also got this this bit here, which is the register of recommended safe system assessors. And this bit talks about growing this list, and this is how you get on the list. So you sort of express an interest to go on the list, although you don't really need to do that, but you can. You do this course, and it's actually specified there to do that. Now, there is an option to do something else if it exists to get your head around it, but really, I mean, the practice is to do this course. So then you need to gain firsthand experience by undertaking a safe system assessment, facilitating a workshop within that, or that commencement meeting, workshop style thing, and going through that, producing a safe system assessment, and then you actually submit that to the safe system assessment team. You email it through to that address, and they review it, and they'll give you feedback. And if they say, yep, this person knows what they're doing, we're okay with that, you get onto this register. Now, the mock safe system assessment you're doing here won't be enough, okay? Because you don't have a real client to interact with. You're not gathering enough information. You're not going to have that sort of commencement meeting, workshop style thing. So you're going to need to go to another one. You don't need to necessarily do it with an experienced safe system assessor. It can help. You can be part of a team like that, but you can just go off and do it yourself, or gather a team together and do it. Maybe if you're in an organization, do another. So there's no specific requirements like that in terms of like auditing. You have to have a senior auditor and the like. They'll assess it. And then you get onto the list, and it's just a PDF that gets updated every few months, added new people with name, organization, email address, phone number. That's, sure, if you didn't want that displayed, they'd just put your name or the like. But and it's a growing list, which is nice. But as I say, it was still in the early stages. Now, the South Australian government has a register as well, which is nice, and list of pre-qualified safe system assessors. So they call them pre-qualified as a little terminology change, as they do with road safety auditors, are pre-qualified as individuals. Most other jurisdictions talk about pre-qualification as a company thing rather than an individual thing, but South Australia is all about pre-qualified for individuals, which is fine. And this one, this course, right? They recognize this course, and they say that if you pass this course, you're okay to go on this. So if you finish all your quizzes successfully, we mark your 2 assignments and you get over 80%. That's enough for the South Australian government to say, yep, we'll put you on there, and you just email through your certificate to there and your details, and they will add you to that list. So that's an easier process to go through. If you just want to get on a register somewhere and add that to the CV and your official qualifications, you can. That's the easier one of the two. The Victorian one's good in the sense that you get some feedback on your assessments and you really bring that along. Queensland does not have a specific list. They have a list of road safety auditors and senior auditors. They have not yet done that for safe system assessors. There's lots of talk within TMR about whether they should add a column to the road safety auditors to have a tick of yes, safe system assessor as well, and how they go about that. For now, they they really just say that anybody with appropriate knowledge to undertake safe system assessment can do it. How do you prove that knowledge? Well, there's nothing defined anywhere. I mean, successful completion of this course is a pretty good way to do it, and I dare say that most people engaging safe system assessors would be looking for that, but it's not particularly specified. The funny thing, though, it is a funny thing, is that the Queensland government is the most advanced in terms of mandating safe system assessments, because it's in the road safety policy of the Queensland government, of TMR organisational policy. It says safe system assessments must be done. Like, it is like for all projects. Now they've probably scaled that back in an operational sense, that not like, if you, I don't know, sealing shoulders for a kilometre, that you do a full-blown safe system assessment on it, but it's very much part of what is going on in Queensland and into the future. So that's very exciting. Let me just jump through a couple of other jurisdictions. So Tasmania is sort of doing the occasional safe system assessment. Some of the state growth infrastructure programs are starting to request safe system assessments, and I think we'll see some of the contracts and different further integrating in. New South Wales is definitely doing safe system assessments in on major projects. It's part of sort of business case development and optioneering phases, which is really good to see. Again, no particular policy mandate or register or anything like that at this stage. And again, it's sort of just case by case, prove competency in that from the assessment team that they're engaging. Western Australia doesn't really do anything that the rest of Australia does. It's not just safe system assessment, it seems, on that, but they're out running a whole different scheme over there, and they've got ROSMA, which is their road safety management system, and a whole lot of different things. So I don't think there's many safe system assessments going on over there. New Zealand's full throttle in safe system assessments, part of business case requirements for Waka Kotahi, the New Zealand Transport Agency. Lots of safe system assessors, no particular register either, but again, looking to be qualified. So we're training up quite a few New Zealanders to use this methodology. So it's exciting times. It's really on the big rise at the moment in terms of popularity, which is great, and we'll see if we can continue to integrate it into more and more infrastructure projects. Jump in with any questions as we go, Kathy, but I'll keep picking along because I do want to have that break shortly.
Yeah, great. There is a question.
Oh, yeah.
Just back on the process, is the link between client, designer and SSA team similar to RSA? My experience is that that has been the client delegates the response to the designer, traffic engineer.
Yeah, so I would say in safe system assessment, the client is a bit more connected and engaged with that responding point. Yes, the designer is obviously going to be involved, but because of the nature of these usually being some significant scope alterations sometimes, that there is that more closer interaction with the client and the designer. Certainly the designer needs to ensure it's feasible and it can happen. The client, the project manager, the road controlling authority, whoever it is a bit more, I suppose, engaged in some of the wider implications of that. What they believe community acceptance would be, political acceptance, organisational policy, wider environmental cultural heritage, although the designer is usually very good in integrating that. But there, I would say it's a bit more, whereas if you're in a detailed design stage road safety audit, for example, it's really the designer can nut out most of those particulars in terms of flare rate of barrier or, particular super elevation twist in the ramp or those sort of things. They're so, specific and nuanced, and that, it's a bit more designer can just, close themselves away and nut that out.
And does the SSA team need to be independent from the designer client to avoid conflict of interests?
So I'll give you a complicated answer on that. In theory, no, not as much. In practice, yes. So the original intent of the Safe System Assessment Framework and how it was out there was not to have it as a completely independent, but to give really project teams the ability to do this themselves, to think that through, to utilize that system. In practice, most jurisdictions are following a similar line to road safety audits in that independence, and just saying, well, we will get independent assessments, safe system assessments done just the way we would road safety audits, because it's clean, it doesn't have any conflict of interest and the like. But I suppose the slight difference is if you have your own project and you can run through the safe system assessment process and the matrix and get some scores out to help inform what you're doing. And that's a nice sort of internal process to do. It's usually when it's put forward to a business case and the like, where you would expect to see some independent eyes on that. And now when I say independent, I suppose, again, road safety auditing is kind of clear cut on that, real determined independence. Complete independence, where I think safe system assessments are a little bit more relaxed in that. So, could be, another project team assesses, or from within your organization, or these sorts of things. I think it's a bit more relaxed, but generally, I think, it just helps following that process of independence. It's easier. Nobody will ask any questions or the like. But I don't think it wasn't the clearest answer, because I don't think there is in industry at the moment great clarity in that space. The Victorian government's policy is around some dollar figures on what would be required. So less than $2 million. It's a bit of a choice of how you might show that you're aligning well with safe system principles. This is $2 million capital cost of project. So if that's the case, a rapid safe system assessment should be done. I didn't mean to cross that out. I mean rapid. And I'm going to tell you the difference between rapid and a full shortly. $2 million to $5 million should have a full safe system assessment for complex projects, or where there's significant risk of FSI, so high-speed roads and those sorts of things, or a rapid for the other ones. And above $5 million TEC is full safe system assessment for all projects. Only a rapid if a secondary assessment's being done. So, a big assessment's been done, and then scope's significantly changed. Can you redo it? Okay, you can do a rapid one then. And what is that difference? Well, it's not like one is a 5-minute exercise and one's a 5-week exercise. They're actually somewhat close in scope. The full safe system assessment has that commencement meeting, looking at the background, workshops, site inspection, existing conditions, and all the design options are reviewed and matrices produced. Those other safe system elements are looked at, proposed changes, the full report, and changes done by the project team. So the rapid has a few less of these. I'll just sort of note the ones that may drop off. So the commencement meeting may not happen, sort of commencement meeting / workshop / discussion about that. The workshop, so, you know, that may not happen. Site inspection may not happen as well. Now, most rapids, people still do a site inspection, but there is that opportunity to do it at a desktop level. You're still doing matrix. You don't consider the other elements of the SAFE system in a rapid. So you don't do those qualitative questions. You're really just spitting out the scores and the changes you believe from an infrastructure perspective. You just do, there's a lighter report done, and everything else is the same. Queensland calls it a light, not a rapid, but you know, it's pretty much the same. Okay, that's probably a good spot for us to have a little pause, Kathy, and see. Well, yeah, okay, no, good timing. Let's take 4 minutes, have a stretch, fill up the waters, come back, and I'll just do a half hour of going through some different cross sections, road stereotypes, and what would align best with SAFE system principles, just so you've got that full rounded sort of understanding to finish off our course. So, last little bit, share my screen again. This was just to look at, as I mentioned, some different environments and alignment with SAFE system principles. So, are you doing a SAFE system assessment on a particular road environment? Yeah, it could be a local street, could be an arterial road intersection, or some other thing, and that's good, and you'll do a fair bit of thinking around that. But when you've completed this course successfully, you might be asked to do SAFE system assessments on anything, and that's good, and we want that to happen. But it could be, it could be major arterials, freeways, urban roads. So let's just briefly go through those so you've got a bit of an understanding. And let's start with the residential streets. And really, this is about you making thoughtful recommendations, a little bit like those artistic images we did of movement in place, and then what would we change. I'll do a little bit of that exercise for a couple of these, but for a lot of them, I'll just very briefly talk about things. But, these sorts of environments, 50 km/h, default speed limit, accessing onto a major or a more major collector road or something down here. If you're asked to maybe do a SAFE system assessment of a local area, it could be, a network of these. Maybe just pop into the chat. What are some ideas that you would like to see integrated, and would they influence exposure, likelihood, or severity? So what sort of changes in these sorts of environments would you like to see that would get better alignment with SAFE system principles, and do they impact on exposure, likelihood, or severity? Let's type a few into the chat, get you doing something for the final 20 minutes. So I'll give you a second there. Sorry, I've jumped forward and back there. Back to where you were, sorry. the joys of an online session. People peering. Okay, let's see what we're seeing here. So we've got some comments around bike lanes, local area traffic management, speed humps, severity, bike lanes, potentially exposure, or if they're separated facilities, or maybe likelihood if they're a bit on road. Thresholds into the entry area, shared zones, speed reduction. Benjamin's got a nice one there. Discourage rat running. So I think that's a good one. Speed humps, restrictions in access to some movements, and the like. I think everything we're seeing there is really good, and I think you're getting some nice ideas there. But those sort of key ones that most of you are thinking about are any vehicles through here, the speed should be well down. It's not going to be a priority movement corridor. I love the ideas of anything that looks to restrict access in different ways to these areas. The more access we provide through this, the more encouragement of that rat running, and those rat runners are utilizing these as through corridors, which is not their function, their access just, so we have a crazy amount of access in Australia when you look at it from a network perspective. I mean, the amount of, I remember picking up a European person from the airport, a planner from the airport, and driving along, and they said, "Oh, it's great to be back in the rat run capital of the world, Melbourne." I was like, "Far out." Is that, yeah, what people think? But I suppose we do try and just provide access everywhere, which encourages the rat running and ducking around here and there. So, and that's a bit the same with quite a lot of jurisdictions. That's good. Thank you for that. I won't do this one. I'll give a prize to the person who can tell me where this is. But these are the sort of areas where we're seeing obvious places for people, even though there's a road there. But we've got Andy gets the prize. It's Bondi Junction in New South Wales. But the area is obviously a pedestrian area. Unfortunately, the road's still operating at reasonably high speeds, 40s and 50 kilometres an hour, which is insane for the pedestrian activity and the like. So these ones are really shared zones. If a vehicle's in there, it should be super slow and really out of place, because it's such a place for people. The idea of altering that to fencing of some description is not going to work in these environments. And I dare say there used to be fencing here of some description, and it was taken out because of the problems it potentially would have had. There's always that temptation to just go, oh, well, we'll just create one crossing point there and fence everybody up and try to corral them to that. It just doesn't work. People end up walking on the wrong side of it, jumping it. And so once you're in those areas, it's just not feasible. Okay, let's have a go at this one, the mixed-use arterial, which is always a challenging road where we've got public transport, pedestrians, vehicle priority, pedestrian priority, public transport priority. It's probably a strategic cycling corridor. It's got the works. Operating at sort of 60 kilometres an hour often, and pedestrian crossing points along the way. Why don't we do that as a group? Pop in some ideas on what you think could be altered, and does it impact on exposure likelihood and severity? We'll see if we get some different ideas on this one. I'll give a prize if anyone can tell me where this one is as well while I'm at it. Sean can have a prize there. Oxford Street in Sydney. Okay, some good answers coming in here. We're seeing people talking about getting the speeds down one way or another. That would influence the likelihood and severity of crashes. So I think speed limit reductions, again, not really appropriate with the tolerance of the human body, the fact that we know mistake making will happen, pedestrians, very exposed and the like. So I think the speeds are too high and we can influence that. Yeah, speed limit reductions certainly in these urban areas. The idea of sort of barrier treatments and the like will certainly get better alignment with safe system principles to a degree, but I don't think will fit into the movement in place categorization of these sorts of areas, which we didn't give you, but it's really going to degrade, I suppose, the livability and of the like of the area. But so separation of bike lanes in these environments, definitely, providing that separated bike facility, potentially taking up some of those lanes for bike facilities or some of the road space is definitely on the cards, and that will either change exposure to crashes or likelihood of crashes. The signals and the crossing points, I think, present us an opportunity for better alignment with safe system principles in the fact that we could be raising these points, which not only reduces the likelihood and severity of crashes at the crossing points, but also provides us with a form of speed control along the route. I mean, it is straight and it's flat, and there is plenty of opportunity for people to speed here at different hours of the day or the night, and we see hoon activity and we see these sort of things. But raising those would do a pretty exciting thing, would have a whole lot of benefit all around. I think signals like this present an opportunity for what I term, or what is termed, dwell on red or rest on red style treatments, where at late or Friday night and Saturday night and different times when we know there's lots of intoxicated pedestrians and all different sorts of road use activity and higher risk activity around, that you rest your signals on red rather than on green, and so vehicles are disrupted in their continuous straight run through without being impacted. They slow down. It's not as fast a through route, and it's slow, and pedestrians can either cross there, or if they're crossing anywhere in their different intoxicated states and the like, the speeds are generally lower. Obviously, doing that in the hours where you're not trying to work traffic movement through it, it does not a traffic priority. So the time of day thinking as well. So it could be variable speed limits by time of day as well, based on different attributes. I think that's a lot of possibility in this space. And I know New South Wales is really heavily thinking about a lot more use of variable speed limits in these sorts of areas and the like. Okay, that was good. Thank you. Okay, these sorts of road environments, I think, are going to be incredibly hard for us. But when you safe system assess them, it's a little bit easier because you're not sort of constrained with as much as the project teams and the like. But these roads operate 100 kilometres an hour, often people going more than that. They're low volume, they're low standard, often lower standard than this. We've got trees all along them. We've got we've got thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of kilometres of this type of road out there, all operating at this speed, where the alignment with safe system principles is poor. It's bad, because where the speeds are high, we've got these fixed hazards on the side of the road, and we know that you can basically impact them around 30 or 40 kilometers per hour is about the maximum. We're going well above that. We know people are going to leave the road, and we're really constrained. But the reason it's such a challenge is the cost to get us to the point where you can operate around that 100 kilometers an hour in a relatively high alignment with safe system principles. And that's continuous barrier systems, roundabout intersections or grade separated intersections. And it is just not feasible for us to do that wholesale across this network. So how do we deal with this? And at a high level perspective, what we want to do is invest heavily in our major travel corridors, so you can travel at the high speeds, and our minor corridors, we have to bring the speeds down because we can't invest the infrastructure. So we would expect to see the speeds on these go down. The community will go berserk, right? Because they're not seeing that holistic perspective. It's very hard for them as an individual to understand that and see it. So we need to be a little bit more thoughtful, bit creative, maybe in how we go about rolling that out from a strategic perspective. But in the interim, I mean, we need to do everything we can to reduce the likelihood of crashes. So sealed shoulders, audio tactile centerline, edge line, enhanced delineation, these sorts of things. I think enforcement to keep it at least within what speed limits we're setting is good. Point-to-point enforcement's good. Mobile point-to-points coming along, where the mobile car can come and park at one end, and then another car at the other end, 20 kilometers down the road, and give speed enforcement across that whole route. That's all very possible and coming along nicely. But that's only going to get us to a certain point. And so some significant speed limit reductions in these areas, theoretically, is where we need to start moving. And I'm not going to get into the huge complications associated with that because we just simply don't have time. I had the joys or the horrors of managing speed zoning for Victoria for about 3 years, and it's, as many of you know, it's just an incredibly hard thing to do, due to the fact that you're dealing with individual perceptions versus collective risk. The science is very good in showing the benefits of alterations, the way the public perceives things, and political aspects of it. You've got environmental, economic, and all sorts of. It's fascinating, but very challenging. But I think as a safe system assessor, you're kind of looking at, well, what's going to improve safety here? And yes, all of those likelihood factor things, but really I think we're obligated to start to look at how do we reduce speeds in these areas to reduce the likelihood and severity of crashes. And it's going to cause road authorities some headaches and challenges in how to do this, but this just is so far from tolerable speeds for pretty much all crash types as it stands at the moment. I mentioned there the higher volume roads where we're going to look. This doesn't look high volume, but you don't stand in the middle of the road to take a photo when there's vehicles around. Had a spotter, by the way, behind me, but that's all right. These higher volume roads, the A roads, maybe B roads, the M roads and the like, are going to get the big investment, so the speeds can be higher, because these are providing those freight routes, those major connector routes in an arterial sense. So we would expect to see central barrier systems, outer barrier systems. It's going to cost a bit, but that's the price we're going to pay as a society to keep those bits moving at higher speeds. We do want to see all the things to reduce the likelihood of crashes as well. So audio tactile, widening the center line for the barrier, and the like. And when we get to intersections, we want to manage that speed and angles and the like for passenger vehicles. It's a nice setup where you have central barrier systems and then you have a roundabout at a location like this. The reason for that is you can collect some access points and not have to have brakes in the barrier, and you can bring them down and they can U-turn if they need to go the other way. So that's the theory on it. Yeah, it can be expensive. There's some good examples rolling out now. There's a good Australis project in train on barriers in narrow medians and cross sections and the like. Yeah, so keep an eye on that. High volume outer arterials. These ones are, generally major traffic routes often, and so we're looking at separation of vulnerable road users. I mean, we need to get that off there if we want to. Well, these get operated usually 70, 80 kilometers per hour, and we can't have that. To get high alignment with safe system principles, separation is required for vulnerable road users. These are often areas where we would be expecting to see things like underpasses, overpasses for that separation for pedestrians, any mid-block areas, and then intersections getting reduced in speed through race safety platforms, signalised roundabouts, or these sorts of things to get those high conflict point areas down in the speed and the severity, continuous barrier systems as well. So, moving it a bit, if you are in these major traffic corridors, making it a little more like an urban motorway style with slower points at the key conflict points and completely separated facilities for vulnerable road users and trying to do that separation. And two more. So your motorways, your major urban freeways, they are actually interesting in terms of the alignment with safe system principles from a likelihood of crash perspective and often severity of crash perspective is quite good. The volumes are massive, but we do see, high quality infrastructure from those perspectives. Where we see things go bad is often in the as the flow breaks down. So when the freeway is operating free flowing, it generally has a somewhat low likelihood of crashes. I mean, and the like. When it's absolutely stuffed, as in congested, it operates again pretty well from a safe system perspective because the severity of crashes is so low because the speeds are so low. The likelihood's up because people are trying to nose into another lane where they think they'll get some sort of advantage. But it's as we see the high speeds and the flows starting to break down, where we see our likelihood up and our severity higher because of the speed. And end of queue issues, rear ends, and some runoff road. But concrete barriers aren't the most flexible. They're much better than fixed hazards or even drop-offs and those sort of things. But there's a bit of rigidity to those, so a bit more energy transfer. But when you look at these, I mean, managed motorways are such a wonderful safe systemly aligned treatment for their ability to not only influence the likelihood of crashes, but also alter severity of crashes in some circumstances. And what I mean by managed motorways, if people don't sort of use that term, lane use management systems, so you can block off lanes, ramp metering for the signals on ramps that, well, there's not a ramp in this photo, but there actually is one back there somewhere. So, ramp metering, so traffic signals on the ramp to, put your flow in that way, monitoring of the freeway. So, if you see from the saturation of vehicles, headways and the like, that it's about to start to go into flow breakdown, you can proactively reduce speed through speed limits. If there's incidents, you can block off lanes. And these are interesting in that, you're getting into a bit more sort of ITS style space and thinking around that. And so safe system assessments of these take on a little bit of a different flavor in that sense, but you're still thinking about some of those other perspectives. And finally, major rural highways. I think we've talked a bit about this, but really we wouldn't expect to be seeing these built this way anymore. Any, continuous barrier systems inside and outside are definitely the go. Building them originally, and we'll see this in the Austroads report when it comes out, is there need for this much width in the middle? Because you're going to have to put a barrier system down the middle anyway, unless you're catering for future widening maybe. But generally, we'll see continuous barrier systems to maintain that high speed and understand that some people will still leave their lane, leave the road, and they should be able to do that without being killed or seriously injured. But have some damage will happen to the infrastructure and their vehicle and the like. And the intersections themselves grade separated, or there is the potential to, if you're trying to maintain speed through these, I always still question, can we put a roundabout in? But people, on the national route get a bit, I don't like to do that as much, because slowing down all the trucks and everything going through these areas. But you can do a fairly well-aligned safe system intersection at grade, which kind of involves, and I'm going to draw all over this screen now. You've got like a side road coming in, and you've got the major road, and maybe it's got some separation, and right there. That's of course, you're going to have continuous barriers. That makes sense. But how do you do that? And it really involves you sort of creating this long acceleration lane, and then a U-turn facility, probably down the road further. You've got to have enough space to accelerate. Sort of separation on that. Accelerate, nicely change lanes. U-turn, acceleration lane back, and enough time to change and go through there or continue straight. So then you have the ability to block off that. Now that there's a bit of space and land required, but you basically are able to get up to delta V's that are acceptable, change in velocity of any thing there, in both ways. The merge from the right's not ideal, but it's there, and you don't have that right angle crash issue, and it's a decent way to go, a lot cheaper than that grade separation, and doesn't impact on through traffic travel speed. So those are the kind of things we can look at. Extra content, but I don't think we need to go into extra content, because I want to give people a bit of time to knock off some quizzes and really sink their teeth into that safe system assessment, because I am excited to read your assessments and give you some marks, and hopefully get you that certificate and get you out there doing safe system assessments. Kathy, back to you, and then I'll say a couple of words to finish it off. But if you want to...
Yeah. Thank you, Ken. So hopefully you're seeing my screen. So yes. The very last quiz is here. Ken's top 10 for why safe system assessments. That's a link to your LinkedIn article. So hopefully people can see that whether they have LinkedIn or not. And I've put in there a sneak preview of that RSA, SSA and IRAP comparison report. So that hasn't officially been published yet. So there might be a few changes to it. Did you want to have a quick look at what I've put there? You're on mute, so I'm just going to show it anyway.
Yeah. I'm just wondering which one you've put up there, but it should probably be fine.
Yeah. It's the latest draft.
Yeah, that'll do. I've made some tweaks, but that's fine. Yeah, it's trying to just show all the differences there.
Yep. Okay. So once you have submitted your final report, and Ken marks that, which will be after next Friday, there's just a few quick questions on feedback for the program to us. and then you'll be able to download your certificate. Will become available, and you'll be able to download your certificate from there. And as mentioned, everything will come, a hard copy of your certificate, and any prizes you've won will come in the mail to you afterwards. So I think that's about it, Ken. Any questions from anyone at this stage?
Well, as people think and write anything, just putting that offer out again, if people want any assistance as they finalise and get stuck into their safe system assessment, get in contact with Kathy, myself. We'll organise something there. So that's one thing. And the second one is just to thank everybody. I mean, it's an amazingly busy time at the moment for almost everybody that I talk to, and to take time out of people's busy schedules to get into this, I think is wonderful. And I think it's really important that we do challenge the way we operate, and utilise procedures like this to really push to get improvement. It's the only way we're going to see change to happen, if we actually start to put in place mechanisms for change, to facilitate that change, and to improve things. And I think this is a good methodology. We need lots of people doing it out there, and making these changes happen and questioning things. And I'm really confident this group has that ability to do that. And great assignments coming in, great questions, and really thank you very much for everything you're doing there. Jump into your quizzes and your assignments, finish it off. And I suppose even after that, feel free to get in contact if you've got different issues that pop up. And if I can send you point you at some research that was done in the space, or send you a copy of a safe system assessment that was done, or that I know about, or put you in contact with somebody who works in that space, please, I'm very happy to do that. So continue to keep in contact. For your help, Kathy, as well, behind the scenes.
Do much just behind the scenes. Thank you for your passion and enthusiasm, and spending your weekends and Thursday nights and every other minute of the day living, eating and breathing safe system assessments. It's great. And yes, thank you for being the driving force behind it. And thank you everyone for your participation.
Good. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.